Okay, so it's been what, a few weeks, and I want to show progress on the project. I've changed it up a little bit, unfortunately, because there was no way I could work the old hardware in with the new one. Turn down the volume a little more. So I had to add a couple switches and whatnot, and I'll explain in a moment. Here, give me 1 second. Okay, so as you can see, things are working. As you can probably hear too, I think again. I showed you before some of the stuff in regards to how things are connected, but as you can see, it's gotten a little bit more complicated. All because I had to add some stuff, and I will show you in a moment. It's now going to actually be powered by a 3-prong switch, which I have here. Got this from China for, I think it was like $350 or $360 something for a 2-pack of these, so I have an extra one. But it's a 3-prong with a on-off-on switch. And I get the basic premise of how to wire it, but I'm going to make sure, because obviously I don't want to wire things incorrectly and this fucking go crazy ape shit. Yeah, autofocus on here sucks. I just reflashed my phone, so it has the original app, the Google camera app, which isn't exactly the fastest or most optimized for this phone. So I'll probably have to update that too, but again, I was trying to make the phone be as speedy as it can be, considering. But anyway, so that's the new 3-prong switch. We'll have an on-off-on switch. The only difference is the only thing in here that'll be on all the time when it's plugged in is going to be the router, which connects to the internet, that has the internet radio stream playing to it. Right now I have it playing off a phone just to test things out. It's a lot easier than getting that set up each time. And as again, there's the board again. What I've done is I've added push buttons. So for instance, this one pauses it. Doesn't pause it on the phone because it's connected via auxiliary, but it just pauses it from playing. So it stops it from playing through the speakers, which are here, which are, as you can see, is connected to this other switch, which I'll explain in a moment. One of the other things I have to do is mix the stereo stream into a single stream, since this is a 1-speaker setup. You can see it. Yeah, the light in here sucks, but there we go. You can see the gray thing there. That's the speaker. It's quite nice. It plays well with this. The radio, not so much so, but the original radio is older, and its impedance and amplifier not exactly anywhere even close to top of the line. It was basically probably bottom of the line back in the day, and it's probably even worse now. But again, I want to keep the originality of it as much as I can. The only thing that I'm sacrificing on the outer part of this is the back, which I'll have to add outs for the button, for this doohickey, the other switch here, which is what I'm getting to. Before I was actually going to have this be audio or the volume controlled via the pentometer, sorry, right there. And the pentometer basically is the on-off switch plus the volume control all in one, by having it switched through a series of okay, I'm not exactly 100% sure how pentometer works. I know it has a series of connections that go through as you turn it, which as you get closer to something, it's like less restrictive, so it lets more flow of energy through. It's probably a mixture of resistors or something like that, but it just, in the way I wanted it, it wouldn't work. I tried the original way, which was to hardwire the amplifier directly into the pentometer, so at one time or another, all I would have had to have had was the on-off switch, and I could have switched in between the two of them. But for some reason, it just wasn't working as well as I wanted. The amplifier on it just sucked, because it's basically going from one amp to another amp to try to play it, and it just, the amplifier on the board just sucks. Like, if I could replace this whole bit, which honestly I probably could if I had a little bit more know-how, but I don't. It's just the way things are. So I'm going to keep the original board in. It's in. It still works, and that's where this switch comes into play. Now, this will be able to switch on, off, on, so at one time or another the radio or the MP3 / Bluetooth thing will work, or be on, and they won't be on at the same time. The only thing that'll be on at the same time compared to anything else will be the wireless router that'll be in this spot right here when I get everything hooked up and whatnot. And the only reason I'm doing that is so, like, you don't have a wait time when you switch over to the auxiliary input. It'll just instantly start playing the radio stream right away, just right off the bat. It'll connect, turn on, and be like, oh, yep, I hear it, and just play. Also, it'll, if there are any, like, interference issues, I can be able to tell if, like, the radio and the wireless radio are interfering with each other. So the AM FM versus the Wi-Fi, which I've heard cases of it being so, but in most cases it's if like the amount of watts or juice going through all, or if there's like a faulty resistor or faulty diode or whatever in it, something faulty that's causing a frequency jump inside the product itself. You may not hear it with your normal ear, but it may affect the radio frequencies of what's being picked up or tuned into on the radio either way. So we'll see. I haven't had issues when they were both on at the same time in close proximity, so I'm thinking there's no real issue there. It'll fit just fine. I'll get one normal Wi-Fi antenna in here, which will run across here. I didn't have any issues with the speaker when I had it like that, trying it out. And then I'll have a couple of spare external antennas that'll come out the back here, just to have it, you know, the ability to pick up signals a little stronger, so it can be a little further away from the source when it plays. So the other thing I'd have to do also add is an auxiliary port, so I don't have to keep opening and closing the radio. If something like, for instance, the router goes tits up or something like that, I can easily just put another one in and replace it, or if there's a software issue and I can update it or what have you. It'll be easier to have an auxiliary port out the back that I can just like connect an Ethernet into, connect it to my computer, and check if there are any issues, or reflash it if I need to, things like that. Okay, so that brings us, so this controls the on and off, which would have worked just fine if one was on versus the other, but again, the amplifier fucking sucks on that. And the only way the amplifier actually works through there is if it's on itself, but if it's on itself, that means the radio is playing, and the only way for that to work is if you completely remove the connections and then have another switch, which either or, I was going to have another switch on top of the power, no matter what. Because again, I would need them both on at the same time. So in order to get past that and just move this project along so it works out better, I decided to put the push button switches in, which are all soldered to their respective connections. So you got volume up, pause, volume down, mode change, power on, power off. And then the other downside of this thing, unfortunately, was this is from a Chinese manufacturer, so it has like a built-in audio program to tell you, like, if you're switched like the audio input on your phone to something else, it would it's basically telling you, oh, it's changing from Bluetooth to auxiliary to, you know, vice versa. And unfortunately, I can't get rid of the Chinese voice off there. I might be able to if I learn how to flash it. There has to be a way to like connect to the chip that says audio on it, that has that program or file, and reflash it, which there probably is. I really haven't checked it over, but I'm not really worrying about that at the moment. And I want to, well, either blank it out so it's blank, or maybe even put my voice on it. Who the hell knows? If I can't do that, then I'm even considering using another audio board. But I mean, this works well for what it is. The only issue I ever had was it with this phone here, which is not too new, but it's like a crappy good phone, we'll say. It's my MP3 player, basically. I got it for like 20 bucks last Black Friday, actually. But for some reason, the Bluetooth it doesn't work with it. It's like, it'll connect a little bit, but then it'll crackle, and then it'll stop, and then it's just a pain in the ass. But the phone I'm on right now, which is my Note 3, works fine with it Bluetooth-wise. I don't have any issues with it. So, okay, back to the switch we were getting to. So in order to, because you don't want two amplifiers going in at the same time, it can fuck shit up. Overvolt the output on both of them, just a bunch of nasty business. So in order to sidestep that, I put in another switch. Now the switch is on or off, but basically it's just a switch. So the middle ones are the output that I have to. So as you can see, there's 6 pins total. On this side you can only see 3. Angle, there we go. So when the button's switched one way, this pin's always connected to output no matter what. So whatever happens, the connection's always to this one. And the switch switches it from left to right. And on left, I have the audio connection to my MP3 thing. And on the right, I have the connection to the radio. So again, this will probably just be above the power switch, just to make it easier. But this way, it's also, they're never ever connected at the same time. So even if, let's say, I left the radio on by accident, if I switch over to the source, it's not connected. It'll disconnect as soon as I flip the switch. So it's never at one time connected to the other one. So it'll never overvolt either of the outputs of either one. So the MP3 player will not overvolt the radio, and radio won't overvolt the MP3 player. It's basically, they're disconnected, separate circuits. So back and forth. You can probably hear, you heard the click when it went through it because the energy switched over. But I'll give you a little listen right now. So that's, the wiring's basically all good. The other thing I have to do too is here. This is stereo output, which I was talking about before. I need to convert this into a single output onto here. It's quite easy the way I have all the connections set up. It's not a pain in the ass. Like, this could be easily switchable out, so if one component fails, I can easily just switch in another one. That's kind of one of the other reasons I wanted to do this project. I wanted to make it easy on myself later if I needed to switch anything out or wanted to change something. But one way of doing it is using resistors and making a passive mixer, which can mix both streams into one. So stereo into a mono stereo stream, kind of, it's a little confusing. It's basically trying to play both audio streams from right and left into one. I had success with it before when I had this connected via the auxiliary versus the pentometer. It worked well. I'm not going to say it worked great, but it worked well. You could hear it was fine, other than the fact that you could hear the radio playing in the background, because the radio had to be on in order for the pentometer to work in the first place. Because if not, then you have to feed electricity directly to the pentometer, which then you need another switch on top of that, on top of the other switch you need to switch between the two things. It's very complicated. I didn't want to fuck with it. I mean, the other way of doing this would be like using our Arduino, which, if some people don't know, is basically like a motherboard like that, but it has a lot of inputs, outputs, connections you can make via software and hardware, and basically it's an all-in-one board. So if you want to make an MP3 player, a remote, even your own cell phone, a video box, something like that, you can do that with Arduino. But I didn't want to really mess around with that at this point. You know, at some point in the future, I might get an inkling to try messing around with it, but for now, I'm good. But, yeah, so it's going to mix down into one once I get that. But I have to get new resistors. For some reason, I can't find the pack I bought, and I've heard that as high as the resistance I was using on it, I could probably actually go down a little lower, because the higher the resistance you put on it, the quieter it gets. So even though you think putting two together would give you an increase in decibel gain, that's also in connection to the amount of resistance you put on it for a passive resistor. You will get some if you're low enough down, but also you don't want to over feed the speaker, because the speaker is only rated at 5 watts, but both of these channels output at about 5 watts each. So it'd be a total thing of 10 watts, which is the max thing you can do for the speaker, but max only means it can last for so long at that level before it pops, blows, whatever hell you want to call it. But obviously, even like, I think maybe like as I increase and decrease the volume, that's the amount of wattage goes to each speaker. I never have it at max. It sounds fine at like probably somewhere in between off and completely on. So it'll probably only get like maybe between 5 to 6 watts, which even 6 watts, it's a little over the 5 watt like normal, but it says, you know, it should be fine. You know, it has some sway each way, you know, 1 watt either one way or the other, maybe even up to 2 watts one way or the other, but at a certain point, yeah, you can blow the speaker out. So it should work just fine. So yeah, thing again, the issue is like I have to figure out how to wire this exactly. I have an idea of how to wire it, but I'm also waiting on a fuse. The fuse is for the fact that this is old. This is from 1970, so they didn't really think about fuses and stuff at the time, because this is actually wanting to receive direct input from the circuit, which is the power supply right there. But I want to protect the power supply in case there is ever an overvoltage. And with putting a fuse on the line, which I have to wait for the capsule that holds it, plus I already actually have the fuses, but there's another type of fuse I was getting to try it out and seeing if it worked better once I get the fuse holder. It'll protect it from blowing itself out. And the only reason I'm not putting fuses on both sets, so when you switch it on to the MP3 player and whatnot, is because these each have their own power supply. Like in my Samsung charger, and then the router will have its own. Those already have that built-in protection that I don't have to worry about. That was added way later because it came later, and it was in a time when, like, you know, these electronics are small and they require a delicate touch in order, you know, like they have tolerance, but they don't have huge tolerances like some of these older things do, that with like bigger transformers and other circuitry that, you know, has been shrunk down to small, or even microscopic in some cases. So I won't need a fuse for that one. So there'd be just pretty much a direct connection. Again, as I said, the connection from the one that's going to always be on when it's plugged in will be the router. The other one will only go on when I turn it on. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Progress is being made well. I have another part I'm waiting on for. It's a shorter cord for this. It's like 1 foot long, which will help, again, reduce space in here. I have to order a smaller auxiliary cord. Probably a foot would be fine with that, too. I'm trying to shrink down some of the wires, so ultimately I'm probably going to maybe cut some wire off of some of these connections just to make it a little less distance between connections. It might help with like interference and just overall kind of clean it up. So yeah, that's pretty much it. We're making progress. The only other thing on here to mention that I'm thinking about doing is well, okay, let's flip this over. It's off right just a second. I'm going to turn it on and give it a test in a moment, but I'm trying not to die here, so I don't want to flip anything over onto the transformer and it pop and explode. But anyway, turn this around. You can do it without fucking anything up. Trying to be careful kind of on this. To some of the connections, especially on the buttons here, are a little loose, but once they're in, they won't have any issues. So yeah, okay, so you remember I showed you the front panel in the front? I don't remember if I at the time did, but I actually added a barrier here. It's a piece of plastic from a one of those clear package coverings that I had. Cut it out and fit it in here just so it would protect it from scratches and dust and things like that. So it's like you can pick your finger in there, you can clean it if you want, and not have issues with stuff leaking and shit. And then I was thinking of adding a light to it, which again, the light source would be probably fed off the router since it's on all the time. I'll just reconnect the power LED to like a another white LED or something up here, and then like have an awning over it or a shader that forces the light to only like shine down, and that'll light up the dial in front, which will kind of give it a nice little like old time effect, like there's an amp or something in there, which will be kind of cool. But yeah, I'll show you a test here. So what I'm gonna do is let's see, wait. Trying to see where. Okay, so right now it's playing through the auxiliary MP3 thing through my phone, and I'm gonna flip the switch. As you see, it turns off. That's because the radio isn't on. I'm gonna turn the radio on.
Getting in the way of your life. Well, you got that right.
See? And there's the radio.
For January classes. They're exciting new
and then flip again. And the connection, if you'd hear a pop or something weird would happen, it's just easy connection between the two. Once it's just switching the connection between audio output for the speaker. They can both play at once if I want. Well, technically they couldn't because of the on-off thing, but I wanted a separation, and I got my separation. I got a 10-pack, or yeah, it was a 10-pack. A 10-pack of these from China. Cost me about $260 something or something like that. I got a good deal on it. So I have more if I ever want to do something similar. So, yep, that's my project. Hopefully you stayed through the whole thing, or you skipped through and you learned something, or found something interesting. I do this because I like to do it. So, hope you enjoy, and I hope soon I'll have a little bit more progress than I've had, but I mean, this is a pretty good amount of progress, and I will be wiring it up soon once I get my fuses in and stuff. So, thank you for watching, and have a good night.